talk. I'm on Zoom. 8. Yes. 5.
Good morning and welcome to this special Burn News Cup Match talk show. I'm your host, Earl Baston, and joining me today I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with the two oldest living Cup Match presidents in Reggie Pearman from the Somerset Cricket Club and Cleveland Foggo from St. George's Cricket Club. Well, first of all, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to this chat because there's a lot of history on this screen of seeing the game, seeing how things have developed over the years. Reggie, we'll start. Well, actually, yeah, Reggie, we'll start with you. You've actually been involved with Somerset Cricket Club for a number of years.
Can you hear me?
How did you get started into Somerset Cricket Club?
Turned 18. I joined the club right away. My father was one of those that helped build the Cousin Club and such. So I got involved in everything, as I said, around 18 years. When I was 18 years old, I joined right then there, and I've been a member ever since. So what it was, I was originally placed on one of the disciplinary committees and such before I decided to go into management. So my early days, in particular, cup matches when as one of the younger guys that were on committee, we would have to hop in the car at around 4:30, 45, go down to Old Boys Point to meet the John CMDQ, really, to take on the passengers from Hamilton. And never forget, that's when I first met this on the truck. All the Randy Consumption with that on the John CMDQ, and you guys used to get down there, get the early people from St. George's. From Hamilton. Then we used to come to Somerset and then go to George's. Then we would, after the game each day, we would get back on the boat, come to Somerset, and then go to St. George's, go back to Hamilton. So it was definitely a long day for us. And we, I got to like it, but hey, from there again, I decided to run for man, and then eventually became president. And here I am, being one of the honorary life presidents of Somerset Cricket Club.
Oh, I cannot hear a thing.
Yeah, Mr. Foggo, obviously you've been involved with St. George's Cricket Club for a number of years. What was your start at the club? How was your start at the club, Mr. Foggo? Can you hear me? Mr. Foggo, can you hear me?
He's had an audio problem, though.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me go back.
Hear you.
You cannot hear me. Okay. Okay. Let's go back to you, Mr. Pearman. You had 2 stints as president. What was that first term like for you?
Oh, the first term was the major one, right? In 1979, I happened to be president of the club, and we took back that trophy. And I can assure you that was one. Well, it was really ended up being a whole week after we had won it, but that was some game that day, and we didn't know how we were going to back. It got so much that close to the end of the game, all my girls and all that were working in the office when I was just left. I was the only one left in the office doing anything. Everybody rushed out to the porch and rushed out on the field. I couldn't move. I couldn't leave everything as it was. So I was stuck as president of the club. I said, well, look, my turn has got to come because I got to change up and go down to do the presentation anyhow. But that was my major accomplishment for Cup Match during that period, the 1979 Cup Match. And I'm proud that those guys were honored this year for the service that they rendered to the game itself. Yeah. But I've always been cognizant of the fact that Cup Match is between both clubs, not just one club.
Yeah. when you look at how that game actually panned out, take us through how you started, especially, well, obviously you're not a selector, but you were presented the club, the team the Saturday night before. But take us through that week of preparing for that cup match, because it was an historic one for Somerset.
Well, it was just a typical us preparing cup match anyhow, and I haven't been doing it prior many years before that. I knew what was expected of it, and it's just that it had to be the game itself and the team that we selected. And we selected those teams with 8 guys that had just represented us in the ICC tournament. And then, fortunately, I happened to be a member also of the board at that time. And so we said, well, let's give it what we have. And thanks to Bert Philpott and his committee that picked that team, we picked the winning team as such. And I don't think any team, I think even Bummy would have captained that team. They would have won it anyhow. But it panned out, and that whole week was a lead up into it, and was the game itself that really was the icing on the cake for that whole thing.
We do have Mr. Foggo back. Mr. Foggo,
I lost you again.
No, you're here. We can hear you. We can hear you. If you can hear us, when you can you hear me, Mr. Foggo? Okay, he can't hear me again. But Mr. Pearman, when we talk about you guys were able to win it in '79, and then you were still president the year St. George's won it back, or the year before?
We took it back. We won it in St. George's in '81.
Right.
We took it in, and then I was president when we lost it again. I think it was in '83. I think we lost it. '82 or '83. I think we lost.
Right. Yeah. But being in charge of the biggest event in Bermuda, when you're hosting it, how much pressure is on the president? I know you have your committee and all, but everyone looks at two people during cup match: the president and the captain of the team. How much pressure do you take as a president to ensure that the match comes off and everything around it is done in the manner in which the club wants to be seen?
Well, it's a team effort, and if you've got the right team and your team is supportive of you, it makes your job as president a heck of a lot easier. Just like with the team itself on the field, if you got the cooperation, the captain's got the cooperation of all these guys on the field, hey, you'll get the results. And basically, I had a good team with me at that time, and we worked together, and hey, we made it happen. Let's put it that way. Yeah, there were arguments. We have our arguments. We have our fights. I recall going into one meeting up there at about 8 o'clock at night. We guys finished 4 o'clock the next morning. I said, shucks, our meeting in the House of longer than the House of Assembly meets. But these are the things that get things done. We love the game. We knew that, and I think it happens to both clubs, that we are charged with something. We have this cup match that's been more or less given to us, and we've earned it through the emancipation and everything else. And it's a team effort. It's got to be a team effort. You cannot do it by yourself. And if you got a good team with you, hey, you can make it work, one or the other. Even down to losing a game. It's how you lose and everything else. It's all part of it.
Looking at the changes, I know when you were president, it was 2 years about, unless you lost that first year at home. Looking at how the game off the field, basically the decisions the club makes together to try and enhance the game. Looking at it, do you think it's all been for the better? What would you have done a little differently, given the times that you've had as president?
I think, well, what happens is when I came on, I had a bunch of young guys with me on the committee, and we guys looked at change. There were set rules between Somerset and St. George's, where we guys, younger guys like Pop Can and all we guys came on, right? And we figured, hey, this is time for change. We two clubs doing one cup match, we've got to get together. At the time, we weren't sharing anything. We weren't sharing any gate receipts. We weren't sharing problems and everything. Somerset ran cup match up in Somerset. St. George's ran down in St. George's, the way they ran it. St. George's run it. We weren't sharing anything. And I think we guys took we younger guys took a lot of flack trying to convince the older members of those clubs, both clubs, to, hey, we guys got to get together to make this thing work. And yeah, thanks to Clevie when he was there, and also Alex Daniels when he was president of St. George. We guys decided that, hey, one day we're going to have a seminar. So we went up Lowe's for Saturday morning. We came down, my committee and all, and we sat down, we started thrashing this thing out. Say, look, we're going to start sharing the information. It's not just for one club. Yeah, we've had it this way over the years and everything else. And it started from there. It molded on in there. Then we got into the discussion. I was part of the discussion when we decided to make it a year about, because we found that it wasn't economically feasible for both clubs to have the same antiquated rules that they had there. People mentioned Bummy when he was there, but Somerset had that thing way back in, they had it for something like 12 or 15 years also, but because of the rules that they couldn't change, the different rules that they had set in. So we younger guys at the time took the initiative to say, look, we need to get this thing moving into a different direction where we can sit down and results of what they are today. A lot of them are a lot of changes, and I commend the younger presidents that's coming on, Neil and the late Jetty Swift when he was there, Richard Scott, and even Alfred maybe with all those guys. And Urban followed me, Urban B. He was another one. And we guys, it improved every year as we got along. And we found that by us two clubs working together, we were able to make these changes, and it's what we have now. I never would have thought back in my day when scaffolding would have gone up to 3 stories high, like when I'm not looking at cop match and all that way. I recall that when Urban was there, he was on my committee with me. Urban, we guys used to procure some, wasn't scaffolding at the time, but some, I forget what they call it, rebar and all like that. We used to tie all that together after we put the seats in on the northern end down there. And then when I initially went on, we just had the one wooden stand over by Lopes's garden. And then lumber came from Dockyard and Mr. Freddie Tucker and all those guys down there. And they used to be patched. I used to help to patch that every year, hit lumber and all, they patched that. Then we decided to go excavate on the field and put in the seating. And this is what we have now. And then we decided to cover it. And one thing I commend David Looks for one time. I went to the cup match one year. I said, look, I had they can make an appeal. We didn't have enough cameras for the people. I went over to Looks' show one morning, early in the morning. I said, David, look, I'm looking for appeal, man, for somebody to come on, give me some help, get some cameras. And the amount of calls that we got that night was unbelievable. People were going to come up and help just to cover this little bit of stance and all that we have. So it has evolved, and each president has made their contribution.
Looking at all the things that go on around the club in preparation for Cup Match, it must have been difficult for when you guys were hosting it for 2 years back to back, because you had to do so much in order to ensure that the facility was ready for a 2-year period. Mr. Foggo, I just want to bring you in now. How did you get involved in St. George's Cricket Club when it came to management?
I cannot hear a thing.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe he needs to turn his volume up on his computer. But okay, Mr. Pearman, obviously we've moved away from the structured, wooden structured housing, as we call it, for Cup Match, because people used to want to stay at the grounds to secure the stuff, to now the scaffolding, which gives it a theater look. Over your time, it's obviously a challenge in making sure that the club itself is ready for close to what, 12,000, 15,000 people each day for the biggest event in Bermuda every year. So when did you start your preparations? And obviously, if it was the first year, you had to make sure that things were in place for 2 years running.
Well, we guys, when I was on committee, we guys sat down. Basically, I followed in from some of the guys like Alfred Simmons and Arthur Reed, and we guys, those fellas were forward planners. So basically, we knew that we were having Cup Match out the next year or 2 years' time. We made long-term plans. Okay, this is what needs to be done, and as we got closer, we just ticked them off as we went to it. So we knew that we have Cup Match this year. We got it back next year. This is what needs to be done. This is what we need to improve on. as we go along. So if it was forward planning, we used to get together between 6 to 9 months before that and plan what we were going to do ahead. Mind you, at the time we also had a winning football team at the time, so we were able to get a little bit of revenue in there that could stimulate us to keep us going. But it was forward planning that does it, really. You can't leave it to the last minute to say, well, we need to get this on hook and it falls into place. Um, as I said, when we started out with just those wooden stands, was just one section. There was only one lot of seating. There was no double deckers or anything else. And but the preparations were done. You need to look at we had to look at pits and got to be cleaned out. We had to look at, but we put in, we finally put the track record down. We put in a piping system on there where water was, could be tapped in there and we could use the wells to just water the fields accordingly. I think they called me on somehow along the line, but nevertheless, these things have to be done. The cosmetic things that have to be done to keep things going is what we did to ensure that, hey, the safety of the customers and all that are coming in, and everyone enjoyed themselves as much as we can. Both clubs have limited space. It's limited space, and you're talking about packing in between 8 and 10,000 people a day, depending on how the game was going. And it eventually evolved whereby when we first came up, the only thing was traveling was cup match people made when I got involved. Let's put it that way, because people was traveling to cup match. But then again, you'll have the travel agents start advertising, well, why stay here for cup match? Let's hop a flight and get away. Boom, boom, boom. Crowds start dwindling, and they blamed on draws and everything else, and the fact that Somerset wasn't winning and everything. All that was a factor for it. So we had to try to entice them to come back. So hence we made this necessary changes of the year about and switching to turf wickets and everything else. It's all a part of making this game what it was, what it is.
Yeah. Looking at the fact that you had 2 terms as president, in your first term, why did you put your name forward to actually become president? Because anyone that wants to be president of either St. George's or Somerset Cricket Club know what the ultimate turnout is, because they're looked at as the person who's running cup match.
Well, in my first term, believe it or not, I was secretary prior to that. So I knew the decision that rested in the club was in the hands of the secretary. All he had to do was everything came through him, and he had to correspond with the executive and management committee. So I decided I became the assistant secretary for 2 years, from 71 to 73. And from 73 right up to 78, then I told Mr. Simmons, I'm going to run against you. I told him in 77, I'm going to run against you next year for president. He said, well, I glory in your spirit. So, but that was a camaraderie we had with us, and I was successful in getting in 78, and we went from there. So I had more or less had some experience about the club. I've always loved club life anyhow, and that was my reason for getting in. So I knew what I was to expect and how I decided to run.
All right, we're going to try one more time with Mr. Foggo. Mr. Foggo, can you hear me?
Very much so now.
Okay, well, welcome. I was asking you, how did you get started in St. George's Cricket Club management?
Well, in 1967, we had a coup against the senior members. And of course, I ran for secretary, and Mr. Boscombe, I don't know if you remember Mr. Boscombe, but he was the secretary for about 25, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So we decided to get rid of some of the old members. So in 67, I became secretary. That's basically when I really decided to get into the club.
Right. You served under some legendary presidents before you. What was some of the things that they kind of helped you along the way when you became president? You kind of looked back on and used those words of wisdom or the advice.
Well, when I became secretary, we had the likes of C.H.W. Burgess, Clive H.W. Burgess, Andy Smith, Jigga Smith, King I Trot, and I was the baby out of all of them. I done as I was told. I don't know. I didn't hear what Reggie had to say, but when I became secretary, although I was secretary, I had no control of anything. I done as I was told. by the senior.
Well, the good thing is both of you had terms as secretaries of the clubs in which you later became presidents of. Obviously, you two have known each other for quite some time. How did being secretary mold you into what you needed to do, or how you ran the ship once you became president? And I'll ask you, Mr. Foggo.
What I will have to say is dedication, listening to what they had to say. And even in those days, we had the club association, which was run by, I think, Ryo Richardson. And I remember going to meetings at the club association, and I was told, you sit and you listen and you learn. You have no voice. So when I became president, which I was vice president for, I think, 8 years, under Alexander Daniels and under Andy Smith. So I done 3 years with Alexander and 6 years with Andy. So I was groomed very well, what to do, what not to do. And believe you me, after a period of time, they even called me Hitler, because I'd done it my way. I can remember meetings going up to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when I was secretary of the club. And I always said that will never happen if I ever become president. You set up an agenda, you do what you have to do. The meeting is over in an hour and a half. I've set up there for 5 and 6 hours actually, and to meetings, listening to a whole lot of nothing in actual fact.
Well, the fact that you two have such a long history together, obviously school, club, although different ends of the island. Reggie, what was some of the things that you were able to follow in your first term as president? Kind of when Mr. Foggo became president, you were able to assist in ensuring that things worked smoothly between the two clubs.
I think it's basically it's cooperation between the two and being in contact with each other. I think that kept things going. Both of us, as you know, Clevie and I have similar backgrounds, and I think that Clevie made an interesting point. That was more than the guys that we had there at that time. Those fellows were in lodges and in the friendly societies and all like that, and they were, they had certain rules that they followed, and it was what this match has come about because of these guys. This how it was done in the lodge at the time. You young guys, hey, your turn has got to come, but you sit and listen. So we sat and listened until we time. Guys, Clevie and I decided, hey, it's time for us to make our move. And we did it probably different ways. Both of us bullied as hell. I can tell you that. And when we wanted to make a decision, hey, we can do it. And the language didn't make much difference either way, come or good. We were told, and they got told. But I think it's the camaraderie between the two clubs that the younger group had established to move things forward, realizing the fact that, hey, that we have to, that's just both of us, and we have to work this thing out between us. A lot of this George's problems was Somers's problem. A lot of Somers's problems is George's problem. Is how we tackle them. As long as we talk about them, we can work. We can get a decision made, so we can move forward from there.
Mr. Foggo, when you look back at your time as president and for the Cup Match Classics, what would you say stands out for you?
Well, the most important thing was Reg and I got the 1 year bout. And believe you me, I caught a lot of help from my officers, because I basically done it on my own. It had to be done. I know that my members would not have wanted to go, because we had cup match that year anyway. In 95. That's when we done it. And I caught a lot of hell over that, in actual fact, The other outstanding thing I will never forget, Sir John Thorne in Somerset 1 year, we were talking, and he said, Mr. Foggo, presently, Christmas is the biggest event in Bermuda. Within a few years, Cup Match will surpass everything. And I'll never forget that. So said, so done. Cup match is the biggest economical event in Bermuda. You're talking about $120 million, $130 million every cup match. But those were the two outstanding things.
Right. Now, Mr. Pearman, just hearing Mr. Foggo talk about that decision back in '95 to go year about, how did your members look at it? Because obviously it's been a tradition to have it 2 years unless you lost that first year. So how did your members take to that year about decision or option?
Well, I think I sympathize with Cleveland. He knows that I did it. I mentioned it to him when he had caught the hell from his members to do it. But I think because he caught the hell, made us to make the decision, okay, well, fine. We would make the sacrifice. We made the sacrifice to give up that year for X amount of dollars that St. George's would pay us for that we can get this year about started. It had to start somewhere. So we put it to our membership. Hey, there were some dissenters actually, but we guys had done our homework beforehand and said, listen, this is for the good of the sport itself. We acquiesce for 1 year, and then we can work from there. So Georgia will compensate us for X number of dollars to offset some of our expenses that we had. But hey, it went from there, and hey, it's what we're enjoying now. It improved the game. It gave chance, and they made changes to the rules as they went along after that. Hopefully, the game is played on the field. It's played in the boardroom also. But the game is actually the players that have got to get on the field. They've got to have the dedication to each club to say what they want to say. Forget the individuals. I'm a hero and all this way. Think of those clubs that you're playing for, and then you can make this thing work. And to me, quite frankly, right now, I'm not getting this right now. I'm not feeling it.
Mr. Foggo, when was the time that you started thinking about the year about, and how long was it the process to actually decide in '95, I'm going to do this?
Well, believe it or not, it was through Reggie that we realized that we had to go year about. Because we realized that when we were playing 2 years about, when the cup was in Somerset for the second year, that the first year they guaranteed that they're going to play for a draw, so that the cup would definitely be in Somerset the next year. And when you look at it, it's almost 3 years before the opposition club made any money. The first cup match plus the next year. So the clubs were really not getting anything, or the opposing club really wasn't getting anything out of cup match back in those days. So like I said, Reggie decided, he talked to me about it, and I said, well, it sounds like an excellent idea. And it went through, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Reg, back in those days, I think we gave you like $40,000, if I'm not mistaken, the first year.
Yeah, we got 40,000 for that year. But it started in, I think in '92, we first started discussion. Can you something like that? We talked about it. We mentioned it.
And Andy was president, yes.
Yeah.
And they, no, we're not going to go that way. You know, again, the seniors, Jack was out, Andy was in, and he had a young committee. And we decided, hey, we've got to go ahead and do what we had to do. But you know, I look at cup match, and I'm proud to say that in my tenure as president, I never lost a cup match. 6 years of it, never lost a cup match. And Mr. Pearman, even back in the day when Bonnie was president, when he was captain of the team, I remember 1 year when we stopped cup match at 4 o'clock on the first day of cup match because the game would have been finished. And lo and behold, the next day it rained until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had a cup match. You know. But I don't know about today. I don't know whether the clubs have anything to do with the actual playing of the match. I know that the umpires are in charge of the game and they can stop it at any time. I don't know about now, but back in those days, they had to consult the 2 clubs to decide whether they're going to cancel a match or not.
I think now it's up to the 2 presidents after the incident with Jacoby bringing the game to a halt. early for the draw. And then the two presidents kind of said that, the presidents will make a decision regarding the game itself during the game to whether or not they can end it early or what. But Mr. Pearman, when you hear Mr. Foggo talking about the early stoppages and so forth, what is your lasting memory of matches that would have stopped early?
Hey, we've had two incidents. I don't know if folks realize it or not. We had one where one umpire wanted to stop the game. Remember that game down in St. George's, Stevie? That's
Yes.
how we guys put that rule in. And blessings to Kenny Paris was the umpire at the time, but they wanted to stop cup match. It was something went wrong. It was rain or anything else. And my president at the time, I think Hayes was president. Hayes or wherever Hayes was, Hayes was probably at the bar. I was watching this, and this guy wanted to stop cup match. So I went got a hold of Hayes, and I forget who was president of St. George's at the time. We got this guy's committee, got this guy's together, and we went down there and said, "You guys can't stop this game. I don't care what this is. The umpires are no cup match." And the same thing happened in 1990 something. They wanted to stop the cup match, and Bojangles was president. And even I went down to the fence. You guys can't call this match off. Read the rules. Since there's a change whereby they're saying that the two captains, but we had our rules were that the two committees had to get together, not the umpires on the field. The two committees had to get together and decide, okay, well, fine. You make the point to us why this game is stopped. That's how we guys were to get this thing done. And it was put in. I see it's been modified a bit now in present rules and such, because I guess ICC rules and all come in. Umpires control the game and all that thing. But we've had some tough decisions to be made, man. I can tell you over the years, we've had some rough decisions on both clubs. I knew that. Both clubs that make decisions on themselves and everything else.
Yeah.
I know, I'm thinking about Reggie and I working together. Believe it or not, I put 10 years on the board with Reggie. That's when Champont was president. C.H.W. Burgess was vice president, and Mr. Simmons in Somerset was the other vice president. We were charter members of the board, as a matter of fact. We saw the amalgamation of the SICL coming in with the board. Reggie Reggie wasn't president then, but I actually became second vice president of the board under Ed, I think. I think Reggie was first vice president, if I'm not mistaken. But we've seen a lot of things together. As I also umpired for about 11 or 12 years. I was vice president of the Umpires Association. So I've had a couple of tours. I am under Reggie's reign. I think I done the tour in Jamaica, I think. I went in '89. I know in '89. I can't remember who was president. I think Ed was president. I went to England with the IYT. That was in '89, and then in 2005 I was in Jamaica, and 2004 I was in Jamaica. 2005 I was in Barbados for the first Garfield Service Tournament under Mr. Pearman's reign.
Clevie, let those fellas know why you didn't do cup match. I can show you much power here, Earl.
I'm not making many brags, but I was in the top 5 umpires in Bermuda during that time, I think. I'm talking about Eric Fidlin, George Garrett. I umpired with Mr. Bristol, believe it or not, Billy Davis, Samuli, that's Paris. I took George Francis out on his first game of cricket. I took Shorty Spencer out on his first game of cricket, as an umpire, of course, right? But when it came to me umpiring cup match,
telling me never in out.
even the year that the umpires went on strike, I was on the board. Bull Swan came to me and said, "Well, partner, you will get a game eventually." I said, "Wonderful." They still did not pick me. They picked No Hold.
That's right.
I tell people, you say I was part of the clout as secretary or as president that I couldn't do cup match. But you had Bucky Swan, you had Connie Simmons, you had Anthony Roberts. They were all captains of cup match, but they umpired the game. So I don't know why they didn't want me to umpire the game.
It was Reggie.
It was because of Reggie Pearman.
That's why our friendship has been so long, babe. Great friendship between us, but I can tell you. But you know, one thing we guys used to do, this was before I stopped after a while, right? Every cup match, you know, Cleveland and I would meet while it was in Somerset or St. George's, and we'd have a drink before cup match.
First, have a drink. That's right.
First, have a drink before cup match. Even when we stopped, you know, we got involved and everything else, we would have that drink prior to cup match starting for that first ball. That's all. Well, mine. I'd be tired from drinking all that much right now, anyhow. But we got a lot of history by us. As a good friend from St. George's.
Yeah. But that a lot of people don't realize how close knit the two clubs are when it comes to cup match, don't they?
No, yes, you know, I don't go much in the club now. Very seldom do I go to the club. And, you know, I don't live in St. George anymore. And believe it or not, my brother, every week, come down the club, come down the club. You know, I say, shucks, I'm too busy and I stay too far from the club. I go down there, start drinking, and I've got to get home, you know. So, but it's so many different things that they do in the club today. You know, like they tell me they have associate members in St. George's. I don't know how that came about, you know. I've never heard. I don't know if Somerset has associate members.
I don't know what we have up there right now. Some of them, but they seem like they have more power than us members. And basically, I know that our forefathers did not want that because you know our club came out of guys that had put the houses up and everything else to form a club. And you know the history of Somerset Cricket Club is steep. It wasn't always Somerset Cricket Club. Somerset Cricket Club came out of the Somerset Recreation Club.
Mm-hmm.
Recreation Club had the money. Somerset had the property. And then they decided to merge because here again, large guys again. Those guys got together, they overlapped and everything. They decided to form the clubs. But as I said, this cup match it's unique, and I hope it stays unique all that we're going because I see governors finally recognizing and clearly brought the point of what Sir John said about it's only two holidays in Bermuda, the two C's, cricket and cup match and Christmas. And nobody puts more money into the future of a Bermuda economy than cup match during that period, whether you're in the island or out of the island. But it's the tradition that we as like Clevie and I, we're the oldest right now, but still we're not the oldest members. But we've seen the changes and we've seen the sacrifices we've had to make. We've had to go down. I've had to go down that club 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and pump out a cesspit because we forgot to have the prize to cup match that day. And the first day Alfred would call on, first night Alfred said the pitch running over. So we had to get guys come down there to clean the pit out that night so they can have a cup match the next day. And all along this thing. Different things that we had to do. People don't know the sacrifices we made, but we enjoyed it. And we had fun doing it. And we surrounded ourselves with a bunch of guys that worked with us. We laughed, we taught, and we fought. Like Levy said, he used to have long meetings, we used to have long meetings. And we left that meeting 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We walked on below in that club. And if we wanted to have a drink at that time before we went to work, we would have it. But we left as friends, and we remained friends until today, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Reggie. You know, today, back in the day, I can remember like county matches, and I should have been over St. David's. I was at the club helping to build walls. Members getting working our backs off, you know. We done that for year in and year out. But today, the members, they're not interested. They don't want to help. And if they help, they want to be paid.
Yep.
Those days are over. You know, it's a sad state of affairs as far as I'm concerned. But we're in a different era, so I can understand that.
Yeah. When we had the wooden structures around the grounds for cup match, and we had the amount of people that were in the grounds on a regular basis, could you envision those numbers going up? When I say going up, meaning now that they have scaffolding and so forth, and the numbers kind of kind of stayed the same. Where did we put all those people before?
Well, the thing is, back in the day, that was cup match. People were coming down 2 and 3 weeks before cup match, building their stands. The camaraderie with all Somerset and St. George's, it was there. We sat off, we drank, we put up our stands, and this is what cup match was all about back in the day. Today, we got the scaffolding. I mean, and one other thing, we never got the sponsorship that they have today.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember many years ago going to Goose Gosling for a donation for cup match. And he said, listen, we Black Rum sells itself. We don't need no signs to say about Black Rum. It sells itself, so we don't really need it. Even Shell. I went to Shell. No. Then the Shell competition started, and then I think through that they started to get sponsorship. And it's a wonderful thing, though. I mean, the type of money that is injected into cup match today, you know.
If you had to describe one person's performance at a cup match that stands out in your mind, Mr. Pearman, who would that person be?
Oh, yeah, got me now, Earl, boy. I never got, as president, I never got a chance to see much cup match.
Right.
If I was down in St. George's, I would be with the Clive, Clevie, or somebody else. You guys be in the bar or just sitting around. To see the actual game itself, yeah, we saw quite a bit. I couldn't pinpoint on any certain individual. Yeah, Toppins is another good friend of mine. Just celebrated his birthday the other day. Had a good word with him, but his performances during the Bummy era. But my good friend Bummy, I mean, he had that team that he had. That he voted that team. He's a disciplinarian. That's one thing I liked about him.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, but from the Somerset standpoint, was to be quite honest, it would be my match in 1954. I was only 11 years old, right? When Somerset knocked St. George's down for what 54,
36.
That's good. And Woodgate and all those fellas. That would be that was one of my most memorable cup matches. I think that probably maybe got me involved in cup match way back there. That would have been mine.
And believe it or not, Reggie, that was my first cup match in Somerset.
Yeah.
Otis got knocked down for 36 runs.
Yeah. That was
I think they lost the match by 210 runs, I think. I think they won by 10 wickets Somerset. But that was my very first cup match in Somerset that I remember.
Right.
I mean, I can remember doing cup match 5 and 6 in George's, you know, but not in Somerset.
But look, you guys, Cleveland and I, we got a picture of him and I as young guys out there. Who is it called? Martin Muir or somebody?
Martin Muir was Mr. Brenda's grandfather, Jack.
Right.
You
Alfred. Was you and Jack?
I was secretaries.
Yeah, you were secretary and I was secretary. Somerset.
Yeah.
Was Alfred and me and you and Jack. But Earl, I can remember days when maybe you can remember that and George. Maybe he used to have to stop the game for his governor to come across the field.
Oh yes.
But
they would come from Myers and
he used to come and he used to come from over by him on Broom Street. And they stopped the game.
Oh yeah.
In the middle of the field. And then we all stood to attention when they played Go and Save the Queen on the porch. There's the days. And you know, we young guys, then we started, this thing happened no more. So, and we spoke to government house, he said, you're right, you know. And we started talking to the government house about it, he said, you're right, mate. This game is bigger than that. We're coming from back steps. No, but some come off the back steps, but that's what he did.
Wow.
But as I said, history, we can talk history for days. And one other point, Champ was a good friend to both of those clubs, right? If you look at both of those clubs, and if you know Lords in England, those clubs are designed on the way Lords is designed. The bottom section is for the players, the middle section is for the members of the club, and the up top is for your VIP guests. Both clubs, Champ brought that back from England when he came back over those years ago. He never forget, he told me about it really. Because him and I used to sit in cup wrestling. As he got older, I used to go down his house and talk to him about it. But these are those things that were all injected in the cup match.
Did he make presidents Reggie in Somerset? Champ.
Who?
Champ.
What about it?
Was he ever president in Somerset?
No, he's never president. He was never president. Mm-mm.
I don't know if a
Well,
lot,
gentlemen, yeah, go
I
ahead,
was
Mr.
going
Foggo.
to say, I don't know if a lot of people realize it or not, but I think it was through Chent, if I'm not mistaken, Reggie. He's the one that started the icy, not the ice, that tournament. What was it called?
The associates told him.
Associates tournament.
He was one of the founders of that.
He
Champ.
was instrumental in getting it going.
In fact, and I don't know what happened to it. There was a trophy put up from ICC in honor of Champ for doing that. I don't think it was. I know it was the most valuable player trophy to be played for, but I don't think it's played for anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Of Champ, that it was
And
done.
another,
That's when I was making, when I was part of ICC going over to them early days.
and
So
another notable thing in that tournament, a Bermudian was the first one to make a century in the tournament. That was Sid Brown,
yeah,
very first person to make a century in the ICC tournament.
part of the 1979 Cup Match Champions team.
You
Don't
stacked me
talk about
that
that.
year.
Don't
You
talk
stacked me
about
that year.
You're talking about my brother, you know. You're talking about my brother.
The deck was stacked in '79. Don't worry about it. No. But the fact that this year will go down as a year to remember the fact with no cup match. It is a time to reflect on how cup match has evolved over the years. Your thoughts on this particular year with cup match being canceled? How would you like for people to reflect on the classic itself? And I'll start with you, Mr. Foggo.
Well, we can only reminisce about all the years that cup match has been, and hopefully we can get back to it next year. I don't know whether we'll be playing next year or not. You know, with this pandemic going around, it's a pretty serious situation. But you know, with all of the call of all the people from overseas coming to cup match, Bermuda has lost a lot of money this year in cup match, and it's certainly a sad state of affairs that this had to have happened, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Pearman?
Yeah, I would say that for a sport to survive 2 world wars, cup has never been canceled. And yet this pandemic has come through and ripped through this entire world to cancel a cup match. I employed Mike President to before he made his decision to eventually call off cup match. Right, we 4 presidents got together. Myself, Irvin B, who was surviving president, Alfred Mabry, Richard Scott, and him. We were all tuned in. We talked to Jetty. He was up top in heaven. But we guys had a discussion on this thing on a virtual one Sunday evening, and we saying about to survive all this and for this dang I didn't use dang, I used more words than that, but this pandemic to come through and cancel cup match, it's unbelievable. I thought that I would never see that, especially when in the First World War there wasn't much publicity then, but in the Second World War where they could change the date to come to make 2-day cup match. You know one other reason why those dates were changed? Because the ships had to be offloaded on Thursday, right? So they could sail on that Saturday. And the warships on that one of that period. But as Sleepy was saying, I'm not sure that we're going to have it next year. I hope and pray that we do. But I think it has made us realize, hey, the good Lord knows what He wants to do, mate, and He's calling the shots. We have no control over that.
Well, gentlemen, I do want to thank you very much for your time. You have enlightened us all on history of the annual classic, and we do hope that it will take place next year. Cup match is one of the things that bring the entire island together. Although it's divided by colors, it's one of those things that it's friendly rivalry. You want to see the players do the best they can on the field, and hopefully, and I know I'll get a smile from both of you, that the cup will stay in St. George next year.
Gotta get down there first.
Well, if it comes off, it will take the red and blue flags off the side of it, and you can take those when you go back home, Mr. Pearman. How's that?
You got another 2 or 3 years to go. We'll push it for 10. This
Well,
is
I can agree with Reggie. As a cricketer and looking at the game today, I tell my brother and all of them, Somerset will hold the trophy just like Bommy Simons at the trophy. They're developed, they're together, and the only way you're going to beat them, you're going to just continue on, plug in. But Somerset has a team that, in my opinion, was second to Bommy Simons' team in the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't think St. George's can beat them presently. I'm being realistic.
I know you can catch help from your minister.
But, you know,
And that's family.
well, I call a spade, you know, but I do believe that.
If anything, Mr. Pearman, his phone will be ringing in a minute.
Hey, Aaron, it's been great. Thank you for inviting us, inviting me to come by this morning and talk with you guys. And thank you, Bernice. And hopefully that it's, hopefully that we can, if we're live, we don't mind doing it again next year. Might have some more starts.
Sure.
But still around.
We're not going anywhere, I promise.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I do appreciate your time and look forward to another chat really, really soon, because I think people need to know and understand and hear the history from the inside of the clubs on what and how this great game of cricket and cup match has evolved over the years. So folks, from Burnie Sports, do enjoy the rest of your day.